Just a Concerned Citizen by Damos on AO3. Chapter 5 Job Offer. Hitoshi dragged himself through the door of his apartment and draped himself over the couch. It had been a long, tiring patrol. He was exhausted, and the fact that his hero costume was both inconspicuous and fairly comfortable led to many bad habits. He didn't have to get changed and shower before checking in with his agency, and more than once had fallen asleep on the couch in this exact position after coming home. The only thing that stopped him this time was his cat, a fat, old, gray, fluffy menace he had lovingly named Shithead, leaping onto his lap and yowling for food. He held out until the cat started kneeing at his leg, and he was forced to get up and feed her and himself. Aside from the purring of his cat and the sounds of kibble food hitting the side of the bowl, Hitoshi's apartment was dark and quiet. When he had first graduated and moved out, his roommate had been Sero, of all people. It was mostly for convenience. The agency Hanta had landed a sidekick job with had been nearby, and Hitoshi hadn't really minded the guy. But, like the rest of his class, he got popular fast, quickly got a promotion, and moved to a different agency, where he got to be a proper spotlight hero. Now, Hitoshi had a 2-bedroom apartment to himself, and only his cat to know that he got a little lonely sometimes. As someone who worked in the underground, things were different for Hitoshi than they were for his classmates. But then again, they had been different for him from the very start. His agency rarely assigned him cases, expecting him to find leads on his own. Really, it mostly functioned as an easy way for underground heroes to communicate with each other and the Hero Commission. Compared to spotlight agencies, there weren't many benefits. There was no main office, patrol hours were late at night, and the pay tended to be shit. But the lack of oversight did mean that Hitoshi had a lot of freedom in how he handled his job. For one thing, he had the luxury of being interested in possible vigilantes, instead of being obliged to arrest them. As he moved to the kitchen and waited for the oil in the pan to heat, he reviewed what he had known about Izuku Midoriya. It wasn't much. The contacts and address he had in his phone were sparse, and Hitoshi had avoided doing any real digging. No database searches or background checks, because that sort of thing would send red flags to certain people, and he wasn't sure yet if he wanted to expose the man more than he had to. After visiting his apartment, he was glad he hadn't. The impression that Hitoshi had gotten from Midoriya was that of someone who wasn't doing much more than just existing. Someone whose life hadn't gone all that well. If his reaction to meeting someone whose picture he had on his wall was shame, someone who wanted to help, someone who wanted people to let him help, and didn't think they would, enough so that he anomalized himself before trying. There was a lot of reasons Midoriya might have done something like that, but after meeting him, Hitoshi had gotten the distinct impression that past criminal acts were not likely one of them. In fact, Hitoshi could almost see himself in his situation, if things had gone differently for him. Only, he had been an angry kid. He would have lashed out and done something stupid long before Midoriya had. The only reason he hadn't was because he finally managed to find someone who believed in him. One person's support had really opened up the world of opportunities. As he cracked an egg into the pan, Hitoshi idly wondered if anyone had ever offered Midoriya that kind of support. Then he wondered if maybe he'd ought to pay his good luck forward. He finished eating, did the dishes, and then stood under the hot water of the shower for long enough, thinking. Ordinarily, his curiosity in the not quite vigilante had been professional. Someone who, all but solved every case they touched, hadn't come out of nowhere. Then it had become worried, because as it turned out, someone like that could come from nowhere, and would probably very quickly go back to nowhere if they weren't handled properly. He hoped that his visit to Midoriya had encouraged him to continue to help in safer ways. but he also knew firsthand just how addictive being able to help people, for once, was. It might have slowed him down, but unless he was made to stop, and Hitoshi had no intention of forcing that either, it was only a matter of time before Midoriya ended up worse than that punch in the face. Well, it was a hero's duty to stick their noses into place they weren't asked to. Sent. So, hey, if in theory you met someone who hadn't had it great, but who still wanted to do good, and you could help them through means that were not necessarily illegal but were frowned upon, what would you do? From Dad. Are you looking for an actual answer or confirmation of something you want to do, anyways? Either way, I think you know what I'm going to say. Sent. Fair enough. Sometimes Izuku thought he was too cheerful of a person. What with all the horrible things he regularly saw online. He didn't regret it, of course, but some days it became a little much. Like tonight, someone had dumped a bunch of files that had been taken in a data leak from a phone company. He was sure most of the people going through these files were looking for blackmail and passwords, but personally, he found a folder of photos of corpses that he was now trying to identify. It was pretty weird that this sort of thing was the bright spot of his day. But even if it was morbid, it was. He was doing something. Doing good. It was just pretty sad, too. There was so much wrong with the world that, despite all the heroes in it, even someone like him could find something they've missed. Sometimes he wondered if the heroes resented that he was giving them more work to do. But, well, if he was going to help, this was all he could do. Heroes did the real work. He just found the problems. He might really, really want to do more sometimes. But he didn't. But it wouldn't be anything illegal. No. It was just that he would be able to solve so much more if he did a little investigation of his own. He did not go out and do any investigation of his own, because he had been warned not to do something like that. And he didn't ask for more information from the heroes, because he knew he already seemed suspicious enough as it was. In fact, the only contact he had with any hero outside of the messages he sent them was from Mindjacked. Oh, do you like cats, by the way? Mindjacked kept trying to keep up a texting conversation with him, and Izuku couldn't figure out why. If it were for more information, then he was really bad at it, and Izuku wasn't sure why he would need more anyways, considering the pro had easy access to police databases. The pro had come to his house, surely he knew, but he kept up communication. If it was a way of keeping tabs on him, it was a very strange way of doing it, since the hero never asked where he was or what he was doing. Sent. Yeah, I do. I've considered getting one, but I feel like I don't have enough space. From Mindjack. I see. Well, you know, a small apartment is better than the streets. So if, in theory, I found a stray that needed a home, you wouldn't be entirely opposed? Sent. Are you threatening to give me a cat? From Mindjacked. Not yet. But it comes up more often than you think. Sometimes he thought the pro was messaging him out of some sort of obligation or pity, and then he would get a message like, from Mindjack. Did you see the news about the Igakura gang? 4 guys robbing a jewelry store in broad daylight. Pretty damn bold if you ask me. And clearly the hero wanted his thoughts on it, or he wouldn't have asked. It made Izuku a little nervous, made him feel like he was being tested. And in the end, he couldn't help himself. He ended up looking up the news footage. He had been bold. All 4 men in matching white hoodies. 2 of them waved to the security cameras right before they stormed the store. They had been sighted before, but before they had mostly stuck to small-time robberies, like gas station and convenience stores. Their quirks were unknown, but something about the way the group moved felt odd. He couldn't be sure, but, well, he had said he wouldn't hesitate to share info, hadn't he? Sent. Well, for one thing, the media is saying there were 4 people, but I think it's only 2. One of them, I think, has some kind of illusion quirk. I think it's based off of light diffraction. Each person has a copy. Basically, you can tell because they make the same movements, even if it's on a time delay. I think the other one might have some kind of levitation slash telekinesis quirk that he'd use to make it look like the illusions can hold weight. Hard to tell, though. They didn't broadcast what happened on the security cams inside the store very much. From Mindjack. Huh. Wow. Now that you say it, that really does seem to be the case. Huh. Sent. Oh, well, it's all just speculation. I mean, it's impossible to know from just video footage. Maybe one of them can mess with cameras or something. From Mindjack. Yeah, sure, maybe. But from where I'm standing, it looks like you were pretty much spot on. And I do have access to the stuff inside the stores. Remember? Sent. Well, if it seems right to you, then feel free to pass the theory on. I hope it helps. From Mindjack. Of course. And that made a warmth flood into Izuku's chest. A warmth that crept its way onto his face if he thought about it for too long. Which was embarrassing, so he tried not to. That's how things went for a little while. Work, gym, emailing heroes about crimes. Strange text conversation with Mindjack. That Friday, his mother learned that he was thinking of getting a cat. The next Tuesday, Mindjack sent him the text that would change his life. From Mindjack. Okay, so I have sort of an offer for you. Well, half an offer and half a request for a favor. I've been working on this case. There's been a series of kidnapping across a few prefectures that are probably related. And they're also probably related to the one you stopped a few weeks ago. I want you to work on the case in an official capacity. Izuku had gotten the text while making dinner, and stared at it for so long that his rice started to burn. He had gotten job offers from agencies before, but they were either unbelievable or something he couldn't go through with. This was different. Mindjack knew, and he was still asking. With shaking hands, he typed out, "Sent. If you really think I can help, then I'd be happy to." Oh my god! Izuku got an official job offer! What a surprise! Totally like it's not the name of the chapter! Okay, so Hitoshi has become a regular basis of Izuku's life. So Izuku works, gyms, sends emails, sends random messages to Hitoshi. Very interesting, very, very interesting. This is very gay. I mean, it's not super gay. We obviously have Izuku starting to develop a crush because he falls for people who are nice to him. Which, by the way, same. There's a certain set of events you can do to me. Okay, that sounds so wrong, but like you could, like, you know, being nice, saying certain things that will get me to either 1, you become one of my comfort people, 2, I kind of fall for you. One of those involves letting me rant to you and you asking questions back. Like I am talking about, let's say, My Hero Academia, and I go on a whole rant about how Vigilante Izuku is super cool. And then the person, you know, who's been listening to me the whole time replies with, "Huh, yeah, that's interesting. What type of weapon do you like Vigilante Izuku to use most of the time?" He uses different weapons, right, for different ones. Swooning over, head over heels, twisting my feet and kicking my hair. You got me hooked. That's how Izuku is, but with people who are nice to him, which is really sad in hindsight, considering that there's trauma behind that. So, yeah, it's kind of sad. Actually, it's really sad. But oh well. But yeah, this is very interesting. I'm so happy being able to podfic this series. I love this series so much. I love this fanfic so much, if I'm being honest. I'm so happy that I got permission. I genuinely thought I wasn't gonna get permission because it is a privated fic, a locked fic. I don't know how to call them, but it is one of those types of fics. So I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get permission, but I'm gonna ask anyways. And I literally asked months ago when I first read this. I believe I asked months ago. I mean, I could literally check when I asked, but I remember when I first read it, I was like, I need to podfic this. I absolutely have to podfic this. I fell in love with the story. I really love Damo's like way of writing. They have such an interesting way of writing, and a lot of the story is text and emails in the beginning, from what I could remember and stuff, which cool, nice, but yeah. So Izuku's clearly having a little bit of, head over heels for, okay, here, I found it. So I asked, November. I asked months ago. I asked November, and I got confirmation. No way I got confirmation in November. I would have done this series way long ago if I got confirmation on November. What? Why didn't I do it sooner then? That's weird. Okay. Literally minutes, 20 minutes after. Okay, for some reason I just didn't do this fanfic sooner. I guess I wanted to wait a little bit because I just recently read it, I guess. So, I guess that makes sense. Alright. Weird. Oh, November! I gotta remember, what was I doing in November? I think I didn't finish a series anytime soon in November. No, I did. It was towards December. Okay, yeah, I don't know what I was on. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what I was on. Also, November isn't that far away. That was 2 months ago. I read this in the summer. Why did I only ask in November? I could have sworn I read it, then I asked. No way I read this fanfic 2 months ago. I'm going insane. Okay, whatever. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my socials and Discord server are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.